Some people freak out in takeoff. It's the unknown. It's will we get off the ground? Is everything going to be okay? And then some people who are calm as can be during takeoff, the presence of mind to help out. Sometimes those very people are the ones who are panicking themselves when it's time to land. But either way, in either situation, we need each other.
You is a very fluid concept right now.
It's culture and film and art. It's music and interesting books. It's conversations and eavesdroppings. It's the impact of friends and complete strangers. The stuff that gets into the cracks of your life and makes you who you are. It's an attention collection. You already have one. The question is, how are you using it? Hey friends, Anthony here. First of all, thanks for listening. I hope you're well. And if not, I hope things get better. And I hope maybe this podcast has something to do with it. I just want to share a story this week. Several years ago now, maybe 10 years or more ago, I was on a plane with my mom, who has since passed on, and my wife, Tanya, and we were heading to Florida. Just a pretty quick flight. And I was sitting on the window, well, not on the window, sitting next to the window. And my wife was in the middle and my mom was on the aisle. And Tanya is someone who does not really enjoy flying all that much, but her least favorite part is the takeoff. And so the pilot issues the final call, everyone's buckled, they're heading towards the runway. And that's when I felt Tanya's fingers clamp around my knees. Her eyes were shut. I looked over, her jaw was kind of stiffened, her teeth clenched. And as I looked over to comfort her, I noticed my mom place her hand into Tanya's palm and gave her something else to squeeze. And so eventually the plane takes off and it kind of reaches its cruising altitude. And that's when I noticed that Tanya starts to relax. She starts to calm down. And the flight was really free of turbulence. It was pretty quick. But then as we neared our destination, as the plane grew closer to the ground, that's when fear set in again. But this time it wasn't fear in Tanya. My mom was afraid. She was totally fine at takeoff, but come landing time, my mom's neck stiffened. She forced her head deep into the headrest and she closed her eyes. It was like she was preparing for impact. And that's when something remarkable happened. My wife, who previously was freaking out herself, very nervous, eyes closed, teeth clenched, she was calm. And she was alert. And because of that, she noticed what was going on with my mom. And without hesitation, she reached her hand over and grabbed my mother's hand. And she held it until the plane landed and finally slowed to a stop. In a moment, the roles had completely reversed. In less than a 2-hour flight, the comforted became the comforter, and vice versa. There was a switch that happened from both of them. And I think about this often as a metaphor. Isn't that what we all want in life? We want someone to show up for us in moments of our weakness and when we're at our most fearful. And when the time comes that they need our help, don't we want to show up for them? Don't we want to offer them our strength? Some people freak out and take off. It's the unknown. It's will we get off the ground? Is everything going to be okay? And then some people who are calm as can be during takeoff, the presence of mind to help out. Sometimes those very people are the ones who are panicking themselves when it's time to land. But either way, in either situation, we need each other. And I think about this cultural moment that we find ourselves in the middle of a global pandemic, and there's so much unrest. And at least here in the States, there's so much turmoil, and we don't know what in the world is going to happen as this election turnover is looming. And it feels like complete and total turbulence. Are we taking off? Are we landing? And here's the deal. There are people right now with the presence of mind to reach over and hold someone else's hand, to say, I'm here with you. I know you're terrified, but I'm right next to you, and I'm going to ride this thing out with you. I'm going to breathe for you. You're not alone. But what's interesting is that those people don't remain calm at all times. They don't always have the presence of mind. They don't always have it together. There's gonna come a time when they are in crisis, when they are in panic mode. And it's then where those of us who have been helped along the way, those of us who have been picked up when we were down, we get to reach over in that moment. We get to put our hand in theirs, and we get to return the favor. We get to say to them that it's going to be okay. That I know it's scary right now, but I'm not leaving your side. I'm right here. If you don't have the presence of mind right now to be there for someone, that's okay. I promise you, there is a community of people who are sitting with you, ready to grab you by the hand and help you breathe through this moment. Maybe right now, as I say that, you can picture those people. Maybe you know who they are immediately. Or maybe it's not so easy. Maybe you have to do some thinking. Maybe this podcast can help you breathe for a moment in a time of crisis and fear and turmoil. But do me a favor. When you catch your breath, when you have the presence of mind, when you find yourself in a state of calm and rest, would you please look to your left or right? Will you find that person who's in a crisis? Find that person who's in a panic. Reach your hand over and place it in theirs and let them know you're not going anywhere, that you're going to be there for them, whether it's takeoff or landing or somewhere in the middle. Somewhere over, God knows where, you can't see the ground for the clouds, and there's turbulence and it's unsteady, and everyone around you is scared and confused. Be there for someone. And look for the helpers. Look for those who are reaching their hand out in a time of need, and do your best to put those people in your circle. Do your best to surround yourself with people like that. It's interesting. I was on the flight, and normally I'm someone who's asleep by this time. Normally I wouldn't have noticed the panic on either side, the takeoff or the landing. And I was fine the entire flight, but I'm glad I was awake to tell the story. I'm glad I was awake to take down the insight, to remember the experience so that I can pass it along. Because here's the deal, life is all about takeoffs and landings. We are always taking off to another destination, and we're always arriving. And sometimes we're in the in-between. We're floating in the sky, and we're hoping and we're trusting that we're getting to where we want to go, where we are supposed to go. But it's in those moments where we're most vulnerable, because we feel like our lives are in the hands of others, and that is where community has to come in. That is where we have to show up for each other. So if you need someone to help you to breathe, listen to this as often as you need to. But if you have the breath, if you have the ability and the presence of mind, will you reach out to somebody who might be in a crisis? Will you reach out to somebody who might be hurting? Because as I always say, we don't become ourselves by ourselves. We don't make it alone. Yes, we have to put one foot in front of the other, but sometimes we have to have somebody to grab us and pick us up off the ground. Or sometimes we just need them to lay on the ground next to us until we catch our breath long enough to get up and keep moving. We're all in this thing together. Different experiences, different fears, different pressure points, but we're all in the midst of this together.